As we enter the new winter tourist season, we have much to be hopeful about. Preliminary estimates for January through November show that we have already welcomed over 1.8 million stopover visitors. And if everything continues on track, we'll have a landmark year, as we should welcome for the first time over 2 million stopover visitors in a year.
As you just heard from the minister, the winter tourist season begins today, a time we welcome hundreds to our shores. Hi, I'm Audrey Williams, and you're watching Jamaica Magazine. We have a great show lined up. More from Minister McNeil on what is expected to be a bumper winter tourist season. Minister of National Security Peter Bunting is back in the hot seat, responding to issues on crime. Plus, it's the Christmas season. We have a few feel-good tips if you're not so jolly. All that and so much more as we come to you from St. William Grange Park in the heart of downtown Kingston. Please stay with us.
Lots of rain in mid-December, fragrant flowers sweetly bloom. Yo, sigelele mama, ukelele yo, sigelele mama, ukelele yo, sigelele mama, ukelele yo.
There's a buzzword going around. Downtown nice again. The Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation will be staging its very popular Christmas in the City shopping spree extravaganza this Wednesday right here downtown. Bargains galore. And to make sure that you have a safe environment to shop both here and across the island, the Police High Command will be implementing stringent measures. Let's hear from the Minister of National Security, Peter Bunting.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. The Minister of National Security, the Honorable Peter Bunting, is back with us. Last week we spoke about the Unite for Change campaign, which was recently launched, and today we discuss other issues under the portfolio of the Ministry of National Security. Minister, good to have you back again. A crucial issue is police-community relations. There's no way we can deal with the crime issue unless there is greater trust in the police force. What has happened under your watch, Minister, to improve this area of the relationship between the police and the citizenry?
Well, we've done a number of things. First of all, we campaigned to come into office on the basis that any sustained success in improving community safety would have to be built on a foundation of trust between the police and the citizenry they serve. And in fact, I have, one of the themes or terms that I use is citizen security. I use that in preference to national security because people tend to think of national security as something that operates at a level above them, at the state. I like to speak of citizen security because it puts the individual, it puts that person at the center of everything that we do in our portfolio. We've done a number of things in terms of improving the professionalism. We continue to have a very proactive anti-corruption branch in the force.
So you gave some interesting statistics last week about how many police personnel have been removed.
Hundreds of police personnel, 500 or 600 police personnel have been removed over the last 3 years or so for various things. Some have been charged criminally. Others have been administratively dealt with. Others, some have just not been re-enlisted. And usually because of files prepared and investigations done by the anti-corruption branch. the public may not know that there are a lot more persons who are arrested by police, or a lot more policemen who are arrested by the anti-corruption branch
Yes,
than, say, by
Indicom.
Indicom or as a result of Indicom investigations. So that's some of the things we've done. But we want to really carry it to another level. And one of the things we did point to this morning, or sorry, at the presentation, was the smartphone application that we're developing. And it's a way of allowing citizens to play a very proactive role.
I was gripped by that.
Well, you know, first of all, the smartphone is becoming ubiquitous.
Of course.
Everybody now is upgrading
everybody,
from the old SMS type capability to data capability, and the price of the phones have come down tremendously. $6,000 or $7,000 now can get you a smartphone, and so they're widely available. And we have engaged some developers to create an application that will allow persons who see something suspicious or see a crime unfolding, that they can take photographs or videos with their phone and upload it directly to police control. And this would be done, you can opt to do it anonymously, or if you if you feel you have no fear of doing it, then you can identify yourself. It's going to have some other features to the app. It will allow the regular alerts that are sent out by CCN, etc. You know, Ananda alert, missing child, etc. It would shoot that directly to the phones. And a very interesting feature is that there will be a panic button on it. And this panic button would be, you would have to sign up for it. So you would have to register. If you want this feature in the app, you'd have to register, you know, your name, your address, your photograph. And when you activate the panic button, it would send a signal. It would essentially replace the old 119 call. And instead of having to call in to police emergency number, you activate the panic button on the phone, and it automatically would tell police control they have a panic signal from this person. They would identify name, address.
It has GPS.
And the phone has a GPS capability. So they know precisely where the location is. Because as you know, sometimes the police get blamed for taking a long time to respond to calls. And in many of the informal communities that don't have street address, street numbers, and street names, they can't find a place immediately, so it takes a while to search, to ask questions, to get directions. Whereas with this system, it will be overlaid on a map, and so the responding team can go quickly to wherever the distress signal is coming from.
How soon would this technology be unveiled?
Well, you know, with software development, you always have to be careful. But we're hoping for the first quarter of next year.
First quarter of next year. That's significant. Any other initiatives, Minister, that might impact positively in our crime fighting strategies? We want you to think about that as we take a break. We're discussing national security issues. The Minister of National Security is with us. We'll take a break.
I needed help to expand my business, but the banks only wanted to be up in my business. The high interest rates were killing my business. They're never really business with my business.
At the Exim Bank, we have your business needs covered. Our application process is easy, and we provide loans at competitive rates for the productive sector. From renewable energy projects and working capital to plant upgrades or expansion and export financing. Come in and talk to us today. The Exim Bank. On the road to success, you are going to want us in your business.
Minister of National Security, the Honorable Peter Bunting, speaking about issues under his portfolio. Minister, the other initiatives that are likely, that you're hoping will have an impact, a dent on crime?
Well, there are a few of them that have been implemented already, like the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Task Force. That's really addressing those criminals and their facilitators, the kingpins, who have operated with impunity for a very long time, and the corrupt public officials who facilitate them. The nature of their work is that it's a long-term investment, but I think during the course of this month into early next year, you will start to see the first cases, big cases coming to fruition from that initiative. We've passed a number of pieces of legislation this year. One is the Law Reform Fraudulent Transactions Special Provisions Act, which is more generally referred to as the Anti-Lottery Scam Act. And we've already got a number of convictions, even though it's less than 9 months old. We've had the first 4 or 5 convictions, and we have about 50 odd more persons charged with very strong cases. In fact, all the cases that have gone up so far, the accused have pleaded guilty because of the evidence is tight and how the law was designed.
And we are cauterizing that problem.
So we're beginning to cauterize that problem. We're not only getting convictions here, we're getting convictions in the United States because of some of the measures we've put in, say, at the money transfer agencies and some of the filters and mechanisms to detect that fraud there. A lot more of the scammers go to the U.S. to physically collect the money. And they are greeted with open arms on that side. And we've seen some convictions there as well because there's a lot of cooperation between U.S. law enforcement and Jamaican law enforcement. So when somebody here is already suspected or being investigated as a lottery scammer, we would share that database with the U.S. And oftentimes when they go there, the surveillance continues and they make the arrest on that side. So we're seeing a number of convictions, and we think we're starting to make some headway. It was a very widespread. You've seen some dispersal across other parishes, not as concentrated in St. James as it was. The other things I would point to, we have the anti-gang legislation, which is coming out of committee now, which I expect will be passed in January. The DNA legislation, which we have finished with it. We're just awaiting the final draft from the CPC, which we expect in the beginning of next year. And the recently passed amendments to POCA to bring us into compliance with the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force recommendations. And that will make it more difficult to conduct money laundering activities. And also there was a cap on cash transactions, which we put in the bill. Even though this wasn't a recommendation from overseas, this was what we saw responding to local conditions, which will reduce the amount of cash transactions and the size of cash transactions in our commerce. And we think that apart from reducing the opportunity for money laundering, reducing the opportunity for tax evasion, it will also reduce the attractiveness of targets to criminals. So we've seen a number of murders in the course of robberies, other assaults, violence committed in the course of robberies. So to the extent there's less cash around, then it will be less attractive for robbers and reduce the risk for business persons.
And of course, Minister, increased security presence will be the order of the day during this Christmas season. New measures will be put in place to deal with.
Absolutely. The convention has been that administrative duties are reduced to a minimum. Leave, nobody, unless absolutely essential for illness or something like that, gets leave during December so that you can maximize the presence of the police, the uniformed police personnel and covert police personnel on the roads, particularly in the areas that are very busy with commerce. But I would also call on citizens. There's a lot you can do to reduce your risk of being a victim of robbery or theft. If you're going shopping in the plazas, don't store things on your car seat. You buy a nice laptop to give your son or daughter for Christmas, but you leave the box on the back seat of the car. If you have to use your cell phone, find a discreet location to use it. Not be walking, be totally distracted on your phone, which might be the latest smartphone device,
Yes.
you know, that's being promoted for Christmas, and which a robber might think he might want one as well. So there are a number of things we can do to reduce our risk. Don't travel with a lot of cash. Nowadays, it's very easy. Almost, you know, every vendor will take a debit card or a credit card. You know, the cost is minimal. So avoid pulling out a big wallet or a big wad of cash out of your pocket, which will just, you know, draw a thief's attention.
Yes. I think it goes back to your general theme and the theme of Unite for Change, which is that security is everybody's business.
Absolutely.
And citizens must be concerned about their security. And we can't outsource that to you as minister and then blame you.
Right, and even vendors in those contexts. If you put cameras, CCTV cameras in your store, and not just showing what's inside, but showing what in front, one at the gate, etc. It's interesting when there was this bombing in Boston. The law enforcement authorities were able to solve the case. They were able to locate the perpetrators on the basis of private sector CCTV cameras, which was shared with them. And so it shows you, you know, it's really a partnership that is going to change the old paradigm, change that subculture of violence, which has really held back the country. I think our children, our people deserve better, and I think it's an opportunity for us.
Good. Minister, we urge the public to accept your appeal. Thanks very much for having been with us the past 2 weeks now. Minister of National Security, the Honorable Peter Bunting. Next week I'll be back. Until then, Ian Boyne wishing you a pleasant day.
Happy holidays from the Jamaica Information Service.
The St. William Grant Park is perhaps one of the locations that foreigners will visit this winter tourist season. Perhaps to take a picture with this monument of Queen Victoria of England. The Minister of Tourism and Entertainment is encouraging us to make our tourists feel welcome, as this industry employs thousands of our fellow men. Watch this.
My fellow Jamaicans, it's that time of year again when, as a nation, we are encouraged to reflect on the importance of the tourism sector as we welcome the start of the 2013-2014 winter tourist season. Jamaica, like many of our neighbors in the wider Caribbean region, has faced numerous challenges over the past year. However, as a destination, we have much to give thanks for, as we have surmounted those challenges and performed well. We are optimistic about the prospects for this season and can say with confidence that Jamaica is on track for a good winter season. None of this could have been achieved without the commitment of our industry workers, our valued travel partners, and our warm and friendly people who make our visitors feel welcome, and for this I say thanks. I also want to thank the members of the resort boards and all our private sector partners, the hoteliers, the attractions, the ground transportation operators, the airport and immigration workers, craft vendors, and all the other stakeholders in our industry. I also wish to thank the committed team at the Ministry of Tourism and Entertainment and all its agencies. As we enter the new winter tourist season, we have much to be hopeful about. Preliminary estimates for January through November show that we have already welcomed over 1.8 million stopover visitors. And if everything continues on track, we'll have a landmark year, as we should welcome for the first time over 2 million stopover visitors in a year. The start of each winter tourist season brings into greater focus the importance of this industry to our economic well-being. We anticipate that the country will earn close to $2 billion this year. When tourism grows, the economy does well, and every Jamaican benefits. So let's all continue to do our part to make our visitors welcome. There's every indication that this winter is shaping up to be better than last winter. We're encouraged by the number of advanced bookings and the excitement that Brand Jamaica still generates in both our traditional and non-traditional markets. My ministry has also been working in partnership with the Ministry of National Security to facilitate ease of travel for our nationals and visitors passing through our international airports in Montego Bay and Kingston. This venture has been very successful, as the ease with which persons pass through both airports has improved significantly. And these improvements have not gone unnoticed. Only recently, Montego Bay's Sangster International Airport was recognized for improvements at the facility and received the first place award in passenger processing from the Airports Council International. Let us work together to keep Jamaica a destination where visitors return time and time again because of the lifelong friendships they make, and our continued commitment to product enhancements, development of new accommodations, exciting attractions, our unique culture, and unparalleled events. And let us all remember that together, working as one team with a common vision, there is no limit to what we can achieve. Thank you, and God bless you.
Yes, it's quite a beautiful tree, and at nights it's even more spectacular. Switched on a few weeks ago, this tree will continue to brighten the capital for the season. However, not everyone is happy at the sight of fancy decorations. If you or someone you know is having difficulty being happy during the Yuletide season, watch this next feature.
I'll be home for Christmas.
I cannot think of you and I apart. We are one, even the beat of our hearts. To say I love you, I don't know where to start. All I can say, inseparable we are.
The poetic words of a creative young man, spoken with feeling by a sister who mourns for him.
My youngest brother and a friend of his were killed in a motor vehicle accident on the 30th of June 2007.
Nakia was the baby of the family. He was only 26 when he died. His mother and siblings still grieve for him. Althea says it's especially hard at this time of year, when they all take that traditional journey home to Mandeville for Christmas and Boxing Day dinners.
The very first Christmas was very difficult, because you literally had to will yourself to enjoy something that he would have been a part of, because Nakia was the person who was, they call him Popeye. And that's just to give you a sense of the kind of person he was, always joking. The persons in the community in which he lived, you know, he would say that he always had a kind word for everyone. And so it really was very difficult, especially for my mother, because he used to live with her. And so the rest of us knew that we just had to be there for her to help and to strengthen her, because we knew it would have been a very difficult period for her.
Everybody's laughing, the world is celebrating, and everyone's so happy except for me too.
We come from a family of very strong Christian family, and so we understand the genesis of Christmas, and we know that Christmas is about celebrating the birth of Christ, but at the same time, it was a very difficult and sometimes painful Christmas for all of us, because we're still, the wounds, so to speak, were still very fresh, so it was difficult for us to go through that first Christmas without him.
Psychiatrist Dr. Wendell Abel says Althea is only one of the thousands of Jamaicans who struggle with feelings of grief and sadness during the festive season.
At Christmas, because of the celebrations and the coming together, if you would have had a family member who might have died or migrated or who is not around for one reason or the other, that sense of loss is heightened at this time of the year. Maybe that family member has died or the family member has migrated, and that, as I said earlier, it heightens that sense of loss and can worsen the grieving process.
Besides grief over the passing of a loved one, the psychiatrist says there are other reasons people get sad at Christmas time.
A lot of people do not have the money to spend. You don't have the money to do the repairs to your house, which traditionally we do a lot in Jamaica. But when you look around this year, there's very little activity going around. A lot of people don't have the money to spend, you know, to go shopping, to buy gifts. A lot of people don't have the money to even have a Christmas dinner or to throw a Christmas party. So it's impacting on people at different levels.
Despite the stress, Dr. Abel says most of us already have what it takes to overcome the effects of depression.
We are stronger than we sometimes think. We are a more resilient people than we want to sometimes accept. And I think most of us will cope, but just want to remind persons that there are some very simple things that we can do just to survive the holidays. And it doesn't take a lot of money. Reach out. I think sometimes the reality in life is that in giving, we receive. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to travel from Kingston to Montego Bay to visit somebody. You can pick up the phone. That simple telephone call can make a difference in somebody's life. Sending a card, that's a traditional, age-old, practice. I encourage us. Continue to do the things that we've always been taught to do. And I encourage persons for Christmas Day, don't remain in your house and wallow in self-pity. Do something, yes? We have to take control of our own lives and our own happiness, and don't expect other persons to do that for us. At this time of the year, there are lots of activities that are going on that don't necessarily demand money or call for excessive spending. There are lots of fairs going on. There are, fairs and all over the place. Devon House, craft fair, many churches have activities going on. Get your newspaper, follow the media and, follow what's going on and just go out and participate. And, sometimes just going out and going to a fair and just walking around, you don't necessarily have to spend. You're there walking around, you run into friends, you chat, you laugh, and that can be uplifting for the spirit.
So go ahead and embrace the holiday spirit. But if you find that you're still struggling, don't try to go it alone.
We encourage them not to remain trapped in your house and suffer pain. That a lot of services are available out there. The nearest health center may be your first the first and nearest place to which you can reach out for help. And so I encourage persons to visit the nearest health center. We have mental health professionals who are employed to most health centers, and help is available. If there's a problem there, you may want to go to your nearest hospital. Every parish in Jamaica has a hospital, and most of us, hospitals are accessible to most of us, and we can actually seek help.
Before we go, we leave you with these words. I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. Words of determination from former world boxing champion, Muhammad Ali. So that's where we leave you on the pages of Jamaica Magazine for today. Join us tomorrow on this same station. We'd love to hear from you, so send us a tweet at JIS News or email us at JamaicaMagazine@jis.gov.jm. And do visit our recently upgraded website at jis.gov.jm. On behalf of the team at JIS, I'm Audrey Williams, reminding you to cash in on the bargains this Wednesday here in shopping capital, downtown Kingston.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.